Yeah. What's up, gang? What's up, gang? You guys know what time it is. This is your boy Just back again on the Men Who Cry podcast. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, review, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. If you don't do these things, I'm supposed to believe that you are still cutting up Swishes Sweets to roll your blunts. On today's episode, we will be talking about what we just saw the other day from the NBA and what we can do to try and fix these things. Okay, coming in hot. So we're going to talk about the overall weekend first, because I feel like that part's getting a little bit overshadowed, and then we'll dive into the actual game itself. So All-Star Weekend happened. First off, we had the Rising Stars Challenge, which I think is cool. I just ultimately think, and this will get back to our later discussion about what happened in the All-Star game. I think tournament style is cool. I think this is the way the NBA needs to go and should go for the time being. It just makes more sense. It cuts things down. I think what happens is the reason why the All-Star game itself had lost its luster was the fact that there was no urgency to it. Like, no one's playing any defense. You weren't able to like time it by anything, and you were getting scores in the 200s. Whereas Rising Stars, you get to see some of the young guys come in there, do what they got to do, and get it done. Celebrity game, I think, is always boring. Some people watch it, some people don't. Never check into the game. To me, All-Star Weekend peaks Saturday. Saturday is the day that I think the best events happen. I think the best moments happen on that weekend. So we started off with the skills challenge, and of course, we have seen the grifter, aka the Black Karen, Chris Paul, out there trying to grift the skills competition. It's so sad because they're already trying to infect Wemby. For those who didn't see it, the skills challenge is the part where you have to do different activities along the obstacle course, and the fastest team is able to get through, and that's how the victory is done. The team Cleveland Cavaliers, Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley took home the title, but it wasn't without controversy of the idea that Chris Paul definitely told Victor Wembanyama, when you're supposed to get to the part where you're supposed to shoot a three-pointer, and then you're supposed to shoot a jump shot from the foul line, and then you're supposed to shoot a corner three. So it's 3 shots, and then you have 3 attempts at each of them. Basically, Wemby just chucked the balls up, didn't hit rim on all 3 attempts, on all 9 attempts actually, and then just kept going for time. Obviously, there was disqualified. It got so serious that apparently TNT couldn't even talk to Chris Paul at this point. And this is where you know where people out here are still gambling on things like the skills challenge, and those are the dudes that need that 1-800 number. Like, y'all don't even need a number. Y'all need to find a facility. Like, that's bad. If you out here putting real money on a skills competition, there might be something wrong with you. But that was entertaining just from that part of it. From there, and you had the 3-point shootout. Tyler Hero with a big win. Wasn't expecting him. I really thought either Dame or Buddy Hield would have won this, but Tyler Hero, great shooter, came from behind and won the competition. So shout out to Hero, Tyler, who's had a very good season. I feel like not too many people have talked about it just because the Miami Heat saga with Jimmy Butler's been all over the place, but he's been excellent and had a great showing over there. Shout out to White Tyler. You know what I'm saying? The new Slim Shady. And then finally, at the last part, we had the dunk competition, where clearly we have lost the recipes, and it is no longer our competition. Yes, Matt McClung is a now 3-time slam dunk champion, 3 straight, by the way. He's the first person to ever do that, which is really impressive. And I've seen some back and forth about like the Stars going for it, and I've seen this before. I've seen Stars tweet out, "Yeah, I'm doing this next year." I will never forget LeBron James literally going on a mic saying, "I am doing this next year," and then never did it. So I don't think Stars. I think Stars get people in the room. I think at the end of the day, it's about dunks, because to me, my generation, the best dunk contest ever is Zach LaVine and Eric Gordon. And neither one of those guys were stars at the time, and neither one of those guys developed to really become stars. They've been good players. Zach LaVine's made 2 All-Star teams, I believe. And he's made at least one. He might have made 2. Eric Gordon has made none. But those guys are professional basketball players. Like, they're, high highly compensated players. Like those are very good players. But it's about the dunks. And I think that's the biggest thing about it is that I think allowing it to be these kind of like random guys, I don't think it's actually that bad. Because I think gone are the days of the like name guys doing it. Because at the end of the day, yeah, it's cool that's like, oh man, what's Ant gonna do or what Shea want to do it. I remember Dame Lillard did all 5 events, which I thought was cool and kind of an underrated thing that no one's really talked about anymore. But he came through it and did that. But it was such a moment for Matt, and I mean, this is basically how he makes his rent. You know what I'm saying? When he dunked over the car, that part was great. The double one was cool with the dude. Anything you do with a prop when the guy's spinning was dope. Where he had to come, jump, get both basketballs, time the first one, then grab the second one and put them both in. Incredible. So shout out to Matt McClung. And you cannot even tell me who he played for. Like he in the G League, he in the NBA, he's somewhere. You know what I'm saying? He hooping. They literally just dust this man off for this moment because this is his time to shine. But we'll get into the crux of the whole thing of what everyone seems to be talking about was the actual All-Star game. So before we get into the game, we're going to talk about the guys who didn't play. So Ant Edwards sat out, had that Henny flu, because first it was reported that he had a pulled groin. I don't know how you pull a groin between his last game was Thursday, I believe, and Sunday, when he didn't do anything that we know about between then. And then it was later said that, no, he has a cold. All right, fam, don't believe you. Then you have LeBron sitting out. And I have seen people, and I think there's a fair take to say about LeBron sitting out in the sense of the team comes back a little bit earlier because they're playing a makeup game from the LA Fires that happened. So they're playing the Hornets on Wednesday when everyone else is coming back on Thursday. And I hear that, and this idea that he just got Luka and they want to really try to ramp up for the title, for the going of this, right? Hear that. But at the end of the day, like, if we're using these to get guys bigger contracts, Hall of Fame nominations, status in the league, then these things have to matter, right? And if LeBron knew what the format was. He knew what the times that these were happening, and he knew when he was playing this game. None of this was new. So if he's not gonna play, you gotta at least tell them early enough so they can find you a replacement. Because at the end of the day, I'm not here to reward people and give like participation trophies all the time. However, this shit is going to matter to someone later in their career. You know, I'm not here saying Devin Booker should make it. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that overall, these things matter to these people later on. LeBron's got so many All-Star games, these things don't matter to him. But for a younger player who may never get a chance to be an All-Star again, this matters. All right. And I feel that there's a level of crassness that kind of comes around where it's like, oh, do we really care that Norman Powell got in? It doesn't even matter if I care if Norman Powell got in. It's the fact that Norman Powell was rewarded for his success. Like, these things have to matter at the end of the day. Like, these guys aren't just like these NPCUs, these non-playable characters, NPCs out there, right? They're just these non-playable characters. Like, these things matter to him, you know? And it didn't even have to be normal. There's other players that could have been picked to replace LeBron, but I just thought that was kind of corny that he absolutely knew all of this, and this was not something that he came down at the end of the last second to try and change for it. But to the actual players who participated, first off, love the format. I actually think that the format worked because even in first of the, if you want to call them semifinal games, but the first 2 games, I thought you actually saw guys playing. Guys were actually playing defense and guys rotating around. The thing that I would just simply do is, instead of having the rising stars 10, and if you want to have that conversation about they don't deserve to be there on the All-Star night, then just make them 6, right? You could just have four teams of 6, and there it is. Just play to the target score. It's not like we out here playing forever, right? You have 2 subs, there it is, right? And that's how you essentially play it, right? And so it's not anything that's going to be that detrimental or that hard. Like, we're not going to get these like all-time great games anymore, but I definitely felt the first 2 games were a commensurate effort of them playing basketball. The issue I have was literally everything else. Like, literally everything else. Again, I like Kevin Hart. Haven't really been a fan of his new work. That shit was so fucking cringe. What they were doing, it was awful. Like, the emceeing the whole night and him just talking, and I'm like, yo, what is going on? And then like, we had to have the whole TNT crew come in there, and basically we're honoring them, which is weird because we're going to see them they're not dying. Like, we're going to see them the rest of this season and next year. They're going to ESPN. We all know that. And it was just such a weird kind of moment. And then Mr. Beast came in, and the thing with the kid, like that part I didn't mind. I think Mr. Beast is kind of a cringy kind of dude, but if that was done like at halftime, like if that was done in between the after the first and second games were completed and then we're going to the final game, if they did that in between those 2 things, oh, that would have been fine. Like, okay, you have this little entertainment, Dame comes out, does his little thing, and then he goes back and then he leaves. But that whole thing was such a mess and a half, and they messed up the thing that I felt like actually was the thing that the NBA actually wanted to get done. Competition. Guys actually trying and working hard. Someone found out this stat that apparently of the whole time from the start of the game or the start of the program to the end, actual basketball being played was 42 minutes of a 3-hour show. It's like, I feel like in a weird way, when they made it, they somehow then lost the plot of what this whole thing was just about the game. And it really is embarrassing, in my opinion, that you have a subsidy in the WNBA that has, in my opinion, been killing it when it comes to every type of alternative basketball. They've done USA versus the rest of the All-Stars last year when they had the Olympic team versus the women who didn't make their Olympic teams, or at least the American women team. They've had now Unrivaled, where they had the one-on-one tournament. Shout out to Naisha Collier for winning that whole thing, right? That's something that I think can be cool and something that I think could really spark the NBA. Or even if you don't want to do that, something as simple as King of the Court, right? Here you go. 3 dribbles. If you get the ball first, you got to make 2 shots. In and out, you're done. Like, I feel like there's so many opportunities for they can grow the game and make these guys stars, okay? I understand it's a lot easier to watch these guys now. It's a lot easier to see Anthony Edwards and LeBron and see Kevin Durant and see Brunson and see Dame and see Giannis. There's easier ways to see these guys now. But when you make that moment, that star moment, was happening in the All-Star game. And they've just pissed on it the whole time. And again, I'm not advocating or saying that we're going to get back to a level of, like, Kobe Bryant got his nose broken in an All-Star game, right? Like, I'm not trying to get guys hurt. But basketball, to me, of all the major sports, in football, in baseball, and hockey, to me, basketball is the one sport where you can almost you can get the closest to a real game than the rest of those guys while still playing it easy, right? We've all played basketball where we're playing, but we're not really playing. You know, we're going out there, we're getting a sweat, getting a little competitive, you're trying to make shots. But as the game progresses on, you cut harder, you know, you set harder screens, you know, you roll, like, you just do different things at a faster pace. And I feel as if the NBA had that set up, and then it just went away because of all just the gimmicky stuff. And it was just, it's not even an age thing, I would say, where it's like, oh, younger fans want it. Younger fans ain't watching that. They watching the shit on TikTok anyway. So what was the purpose of all this? You know, it was just, I think, oh, also, sorry, by the way, too, and I know this might have been your second performance also, Jello was terrible. Like, he was terrible. And unfortunately, that's a guy who clearly, like, this is one of those things where I feel like when you get famous real fast, ironically, he was famous before, but like your life just automatically changes and now everyone has those expectations of you. He was not good. And I think he's going to need some like smaller venues to really kind of like get it. And I think also part of it is for people who are criticizing that song is a very much a song that should be 1:30 versus 2.5. Like that second verse, I have no idea what he even trying to say. It's kind of like, I'm just kind of like hearing him kind of mumble through it to get to the end part. So yeah, it was a beautiful mess. Crazy times. And it was something that I hope that we do not enjoy seeing ever again. Moving on to two last points of it. We're going to talk about the one-on-one tournament that's being talked about. And going to talk a little bit about what Draymond is saying and kind of the larger NBA conversation overall. So the one-on-one tournament, I think, is a fantastic idea because ultimately the only thing that's going to get these guys motivated to do anything outside of like playing regular season basketball or focus on the postseason is going after their pride. They make too much money. Like, you ever see rich people sweat about certain things that don't make them more money? Same thing with NBA players. So I think there's two ways to do it. I think the one-on-one tournament, I think, can just be a target score. So you don't have a lot of, doesn't have to run that long. And I would simply just do it in a way where I would I would only use the starters because I think it's something that the starters can do. And I would basically randomize it, right? So you have the 5 starters. So you're going to have 5 first-round matchups. You randomize the order, pop it out, and then that's how you go, right? So it'd be cool to see Donovan Mitchell versus Brunson. It'd be cool to see Jokic versus Ant. It would have been cool to see, well, he wasn't a starter, but Jokic versus KD. Cat versus LeBron if he was going to play, right? Like, those things would have been cool and interesting to see. My fear is that these dudes don't want to get embarrassed out there and become essentially a meme, right? Like, Breonna Stewart got held to 0 points when she played, and I used to call her 0 points. If an NBA All-Star, who making fun of whoever got the last pick a couple years ago when they were the last pick in the draft in the blind reveal, right? So even if you are at the top of your craft and considered like the best of the best, there's still ways for you to feel a level of shame going out there, right? So I'm curious to see if these players would actually do it. But it's going to be something that's going to be a very more interesting kind of run. Because I'm for that or King of Court. I don't think you should do both. King of Court, I think, should be voluntary almost. Like, hey, if you want to do this, you'll do it. I think that for the actual like All-Star weekend, like if we're doing ones-on-ones, we're going with just All-Stars. I'm not adding anyone new to the actual tournament. So yeah. And lastly, I'm going to touch a little bit on Draymond Green's comments of what he said overall. I think Draymond's just positioning himself to take Charles Barkley's spot at some point. I don't think Draymond actually says anything very interesting or intelligent or very poignant, but unfortunately, this is what happens now in media, right? Like, I'm just going to say a bunch of shit out loud and see what kind of sticks to the wall, and then that's going to kind of carry the conversation forward. And I think this is a carryover, and this is kind of the large problem, I think, with the NBA, is that the NBA game is so good. I think that there's never been a time where this is so much skill in the league. There's never been as much time as this has been this much money in the league, right? We're getting guys that are going to be making $70 million a year coming up soon. And I feel as if they can't get someone to say one nice thing about them. Even their own players. Like, it's just in vogue to shit on the league. Like, you had Kevin Hart crapping on Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's shoes. Now, granted, that might be funny, but at the same time, like, you got to promote this guy. Like, you got to start thinking about the next crop of dudes to come up after Curry, LeBron, and KD go away. And he's debuting a new shoe too, right? So the idea that it's just cool to crap on these guys is so weird. And now you just have a player of himself who's just been a backpack for most of his career. Now he's out there just crapping on everything and anything he can. And so I just think that his overall presence and his overall tone has just been a bad set on the league. He is part of the reason the All-Star game is the way it is. And I find it now that, unfortunately, and this is kind of the same thing that is a carryover, in my opinion, of what the TNT guys have done in Shaq, Chuck, and Kenny. While I think those guys are legendary commentators, and I think that they've done a lot for the league, they have done irreparable harm of how these players are viewed. There's no denying that. Like, and I think a lot of it is just a basketball bravado of like, that guy's not as good as me, and that carrying on until your 50s and 60s. But I generally just think that, like, it's constantly like nonsense and noise being talked about. Even the whole conversation with like the ratings and trying to tie it in to shoehorn it into whatever like personal beef you have. It's like, well, they're shooting so many threes. I'm like, so you want us to take mid-range jumpers? Like, I didn't see the conversation that was happening, and then all of a sudden it went away. Oh, why? Because we're going to have really great ratings. Like, I believe you're going to have at least another Celtics-Lakers game. Yes, because they haven't played yet. You're going to have another Knicks-Lakers game. You're going to have another Knicks-Celtics game. Like, all the best teams are in big markets, and you're going to have a great finish to the end of the year. And people don't talk about the fact that the NFL ratings were down. Hockey ratings are down. Everybody's ratings go down because we generally, and we feel like we talk about this over and over and over and over and over again, people are distracted. People watch different things. I wonder what the number the SNL 50 got. I have no idea, right? Did they get a number they got 30 years ago? I doubt they did. But unfortunately, no one's talking about that. You know, it's just the narrative and the space of this league is in such a weird space when the talent and the ability for the players on the court to do what they do, I don't think has been any higher. This is by far the most talented the league has been. All right. You have teams like the Raptors. The Raptors are like 11th or 12th in the Eastern Conference. That's bad. They have two guys that have made all-star teams on that team in their prime. You have two other guys who are on $100 million contracts. And they're terrible. Okay? But if you look on any given night, like, they can beat a decent team. Because it's like, all right, like, we have three-point shooting. We have decent guys that can move their feet. It's like, and that's one of the worst teams in the league, right? Like, I couldn't even tell you what the 2005 version of the Raptors would have been. Like, guys that weren't all-stars, you know, that didn't have those type of contracts and things like that. So I think the NBA has a problem, and I wonder, and this is why I think the TNT losing their like rights away or whatever, and then like they're going to ESPN soon. But I'm very interested in this NBC kind of venture, where it's guys who it seems to be going to be like Jamal Crawford's going to be a part of it. Carmelo Anthony's going to be a part of it. Blake Griffin, Dirk Nowitzki, where criticism is not a problem. It's when you only look to criticize that becomes the issue. And when it's just constant negativity and constant nonsense and constantly talking about shit that doesn't fucking matter is what drives leagues insane and drives fans insane. And I think, honestly, the conversation around the league's just gotten so toxic that people can't even enjoy the actual product on the floor anymore. All right, guys, that's it for me. Thank you guys again for listening. Like I said, make sure you like, subscribe, review, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. And I'll be back to hit you guys up with more of this knowledge later in the week. All right, take care.